declaiming. "That's part of what makes it so special. Good stopping power. Which is to say, you shoot someone and they stay shot." He chuckled. Important in our line of work. At a distance, Koba was ruggedly handsome, wolfish and brooding, and with a loose scruffiness that might have been an affectation and might have been an inability to afford decent clothing, and was probably a combination of both. His most distinctive feature was his eyes, which were of a peculiarly golden shade, and flashed at the slightest spark of anger. Close up, as Lenin was, the story was somewhat different. Koba's face was badly pockmarked, and what wasn't pockmarks was freckles. It was impossible not to note the stiffness in his left arm, more evident because he tried to hide it, or the crookedness with which he stood, likely the results of childhood infirmities of the sort poverty tended to inflict. All of which, to Lenin, made him a perfect peasant revolutionary. That being the best kind of revolutionary, and the opposite of the over-theorizing intellectuals he was too often surrounded by. As such, Lenin had already decided to forgive the young man his infidelities, accepting that they were a product of the same youthful enthusiasm that had made him conclude that waving a gun around in a foreign country among a group of known radicals was a sensible idea. Lenin waited for a lull in the lecture. Koba had removed the magazine from the boxy pistol and was illustrating how it slid back into place, and then tapped him on the elbow. "Might I borrow you a minute, comrade? There's a little matter I'd like to discuss." There was no mistaking how pleased Koba was by the invitation. For the Mountain Eagle of the Bolsheviks? By all means. Showily, he slipped the Mauser into the waistband of his trousers and turned his back on the crowd he'd taken it on himself to educate. Lenin led the way, until they were out of earshot but not out of sight. Let the others wonder what the pair of them were debating. A dash of rivalry was no bad thing. To his distaste, Lenin noticed that Koba had plucked a cigarette from his shirt pocket and was proceeding to light it. But rather than comment, Lenin positioned himself so that the bitter wind blowing around the corner of the hall carried the foul stench of burning tobacco away from him. They stared at the city. Koba took a fierce drag on his cigarette and watched, philosophically, as a thread of grey rose towards the pristine blue sky. "I'm sorry for my hot-headedness earlier," he said, in the faintly confrontational manner of a schoolboy who'd been taken aside to be giving a telling-off he knew he deserved, and would contest anyway. The incident he referred to had involved him storming out in a rage and firing a pistol he'd just been showing off into the air until he'd calmed down. But when you've led men in fighting, as I have, it's hard not to get your blood up sometimes. For all that part of him wanted to laugh at the younger man's posturing, those words were music to Lenin's ears. Truly, this Caucasian bandit was what he needed. The antidote to so much of what made him despair about his fellow Bolsheviks. "Nothing to apologise for there," he said. "I'd have gladly done the same on plenty of occasions. There was no reason to mention that he'd hardly ever held a gun, let alone fired one. Between you and me, I was quite impressed. It's only right to find all this frustrating." Koba frowned. "That's how you see it. But aren't we on the verge of great things?"